If Jason still haunts you, you're not alone. This is your relook at the NECA Toys Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, Dream Sequence, Jason Voorhees. Young Tommy Jarvis may have escaped from Crystal Lake, but he's still haunted by the gruesome events that happened there when gory murders start happening at the secluded halfway house for troubled teens where he now lives. It seems like his nightmarish nemesis, Jason Voorhees, is back for more sadistic slaughters. Has Jason returned from the grave? Before jumping back to another Jason Voorhees review, the first thing we're going to do is calculate just how tall the Dream Sequence Jason Voorhees stands. This figure was a bit of a tease on NECA's part because we hadn't gotten Roy yet. Everybody was anxious, I know I was anxious to get a new Roy figure, but what we did get instead was Dream Sequence Jason. Like I said, sort of a bit of a tease before we actually got the main course. Dream Sequence Jason Voorhees stands 7.5 inches in height. And in centimeters, then you're looking at the figure standing just over 19 centimeters, 19.1 to be exact. Of course, we can bring in some size comparisons. Most of these Jasons are going to be roughly the same height to one another, but I wanted to bookend on both sides, the Jason that came before and the Jason that came after. Well, somewhat. Here we have, in size comparison territory, we have the original Part 4 Jason is on the left. Then we have Dream Sequence Jason from Part 5 in the middle, followed up by one of my personal favorites and one I was looking forward to for a very long time, the Friday the 13th Part 5 Roy Jason. And you can see, yes, while I would say, of course, Part 4 and Dream Sequence Jasons share very similar elements, very, very similar elements to one another, Roy is different, as he's wearing, of course, those debatable question of color for his boiler. Some say green, some say forest green, other people have said blue, leaning more towards, of course, the green. But you can see how roughly they stack up to one another. Let's have a look at the figure's accessories. We'll start first, I guess, at the beginning of the film. Here we have Jason's tombstone. And though the tombstone has changed a bit in some of the sequels, I like that this one is just basic bare bones. Literally just a bunch of boards nailed together, as you can see here. Even nice detailing done on NECA's part, simulating what floorboards or wood boards would actually look like. It actually even comes across like the nails that are putting all the pieces together have rusted themselves. Really nice touch to detail here. The bottom, of course, it's been embedded in some dirt, some soil. And there's what it looks like on the front. I like that there's a discoloration also happening with the dirt as well. So it's not just all the same color. In fact, actually, when you look at it, it looks a little like ground beef. That's probably all you're going to be thinking of now. Crude so also is the fact that Jason Voorhees has been sort of airbrushed, well, spray painted there on the front of his tombstone. It's a very makeshift sort of tomb. Debated why they would have even made a tombstone in the first place, but of course this is all just Dream Sequence for the time being. Jason did eventually have his own tombstone and his own plot space, but we had to, of course, wait till Jason lives before we actually got that. So that's a pretty nice looking little accessory. Kind of wishes still he could have come included with the actual casket. I have seen some customizers use caskets, and in my previous review of this guy, I think I actually did bring in a casket that I got from a McFarlane Toys. I think it was a Billy the Kid McFarlane Toys. I didn't want to bring it in for this particular review simply just because these are the accessories that come with this figure. I didn't want to spoil anything by bringing in all these outside things to this review. Other accessories he comes included with, he comes with an axe. The axe, as you could probably guess it, has been used possibly several times by the amount of blood that's on both ends of the head. The head is not generally too sharp, but it does have a little bit of a point and prick on both sides. You can definitely feel it when you put your fingers against it. But judging by the fact that there's two colors of red at play here, darker red and then a lighter red over top of it, makes me think Jason has used this, didn't take the time to clean it, and then decided to use it again. He's not the best for hygiene. As you can see, there's some nice wood grain that's been incorporated to the actual handle of the axe, and just a decent looking. We don't get axes too often with Jason. A jump to accessory always seems to be a machete, so it's nice to see that Jason gets to mix it up a little bit by using an axe instead. Of course, don't kid yourself, Jason's not reinventing the wheel, he's killing people. So of course he is still going to use his trusty machete, and as you can see, very nicely painted here. It's almost got a little bit of a glitter effect, something that I wouldn't be able to pull off with some of my older videos now that these are in a more high def. Hopefully you guys can see some of the details just a little bit better. The rivet points also sandwiching the two halves of the handle together keeps the machete comfortable and well in grip. So of course, when he's slicing and dicing people at Camp Crystal Lake or otherwise, he doesn't have to worry that the handle is going to slip out from his hands. Nice little touch that he has, of course, the included machete. Other things he comes included with as well. I'm going to try my best not to have it out focus from me, because it keeps wanting to focus in on Jason. But he does also come included with the ice pick. The ice pick again has some silver color incorporated to the actual pick part, and then the handle has a brown handle with, of course, the halved or flattened edge on the one side. Truthfully, I can't tell you I've ever really used an ice pick. Seems to me like I'm an ice cube kind of guy. I don't literally just take a big slab of ice and decide I want to pick out a piece that I want to use for a drink. I've got ice cubes. I've got a refrigerator and a freezer, and that's fine and good for me. So I can't really say too much about wielding an ice pick, but I could imagine it's generally quite small, it's easy, it's light to carry, and it does pretty good damage, maybe at the side of somebody's temple. I think I've already said too much. And last but certainly not least, before we sort of start talking about his masks, Jason has a nice little Easter egg here. He comes with the split finger from Friday the 13th Part 4. And while it doesn't necessarily work with this Jason, it most definitely works. Let me just reach off camera and bring him in. The Part 4 Jason. We can go ahead and just remove the rather gruesome already looking hand. Just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle and pop that off the ball joint. And now you can replace it with the split fingers. Nice touch to see that NECA would have included that. Let's go ahead and just take the mask off as well. There we go. And you can finally have Jason with his split fingers. That is a nice touch. You can see how gruesome certainly that is. Ooh, that would be painful. Get a tetanus shot. I would certainly be yelling loudly. You definitely can see some nice wet looking blood. This is fresh stuff after all. He's yet to get a band-aid. I think you would probably be needing a little bit more than a band-aid to tend to a wound that severe. All the rest of the things that come included with Jason are in the mask variety. We'll have a look at the figure now. We'll talk and digest a little bit of course, the mask that he's currently sporting, and then we'll do a little bit of swapping things out. As it stands right now, he sort of has his early look, where there's worms and gross things crawling out of his eyes. That's a nice sight. What nice touch also that NECA did to this particular mask is that they gave it a wet look, that the mask isn't the general color that you normally would expect to see. Well, we'll bring in part 4 Jason again so you can see the difference between the two. More the beige color that you would expect to see with a mask, and now instead has been swapped out for one that has a little bit more of dark gray patches to it to sort of simulate the rainfall falling on his mask. One interesting touch you'll see is that there are no chevrons on the sides of his mask, and there is the triangular chevron up the top corner, or top middle section here, but it's a fully finished chevron, as opposed to the worn away chevron that he has near the end of the film. The gash wound is still present on this particular mask, but don't try your best to remove it. Two things will happen. You'll probably break it, and you'll probably get quite upset with yourself. But no, it's not a mask in this case that you can actually remove. It's permanently attached to his face. You can still see they're etching the little wound on the side of his head, as well as the one along the top there. Just a decent looking mask altogether. The hardest part with this particular figure is just simply coming up with what mask I want to end up displaying him with. So we'll kind of go through the options available. Go ahead and pop this one off, just free it from its post joint there, as you can see. I love the fact, again, I've mentioned this several times already, that they use these smaller cylinder posts as opposed to the big bulbous ball joints that they used to use. Another option that you can go with for Jason is you can pop on this head sculpt, and we'll just wiggle that in place. This is basically just wet Jason. Definitely doesn't have the worms. The worms have completely gone by now, sans le worms, but still pretty much the same effect. Still interesting the fact that the dream sequence Jason would have complete chevron in the middle and no chevrons on the side. You still have that wet look accomplished by adding the gray to the mask, as well as adding that sheen coat to the rest of his head. Nice little touches also are little strands of hair. How did they get there? The rest of his head is completely bald, but he's got a few little strands of hair to keep things going. And no, there is no option to remove this mask. Actually, again, all the head sculpts that we're going to be looking on this one have non-removable masks. I like this one that you don't have an opportunity to see his eyes. In a way, I kind of would have hoped that Dream Sequence Jason would have had all these funny Easter eggs, that they actually could have included just a regular mask with non-visible eyes. Because I always really like the look of Jason where you can't see any eyes whatsoever. Kind of like what he has in Jason Lives. But that's another option that you can certainly go with. These ones, like I said, don't change too much. It's just a question of whether you like your Jason with or without worms. Points should also be awarded to NECA Toys for including a rather nice little Easter egg. Jason also comes included with this mask here, and while it doesn't make any appearance in the film, it does most definitely make an appearance on the poster artwork and the original VHS tape of A New Beginning. A nice touch, definitely. And if you ever wanted to make yourself a Lord Humongous from Road Warrior, you can most definitely use this head sculpt right here. Again, it doesn't have any option to remove the mask, but it is certainly a nice touch to see that they would have even included it in the first place. We go ahead and we're going to pop this off. We're going to sort of running the gambit when it seems coming to changing out all the head sculpts here. And we're going to pop this one on instead. I mean, I would really just get another Jason, probably another one of these, just so I could simply display him with this hockey mask. Does it stand out? Yes. Does it look like something he had in the film? Absolutely not. But it is a nice touch. And I like that NECA Toys did actually give us a nice little Easter egg right there. We spin the heads around, by the way, just in case you're curious. One thing to note, though, he doesn't have the gash on the side. It's completely gone. Still has the gash along the top, though no crack in the mask. That would, of course, defeat the purpose of the mask. And then if you look at the back there, the hairs are pretty much in the exact same place. And while they've changed the straps, maybe they've just used the same head sculpt and just tweaked it slightly so that this one doesn't have the gash on the side. The last mask, we'll go ahead and pop this off, and following the timeline in the film, we can go ahead and replace it with this mask here. This is sort of the mask that adult Tommy ends up seeing frequently, more so near the end of the film, standing in his hospital room. And he's basically like leaning like this. Let's just bring up his head. He's kind of like this, just looking at him. He's just looking at him. Big trail of blood running down like a stream from the top of his gash all the way down his face. Again, interesting on this one, if we bring in the other mask that we looked at, the chevron is complete on the dream sequence Jason, and yet the hallucination of Jason has the half chevron, as you can see right there. The little snaps are still there, done in silver. Again, you've got the straps there done on his belt, or the belt straps there that hold the mask in place. And we'll just do a quick turnaround here. This one does have quite a bit of blood that's been added to the side, again, trickling down to the side of his face. The hardest part, as I said already, is just trying to pick out which mask I like the most. I think generally in the past when I've displayed the figure for myself, I usually go this route. I think the worms are a little too much. I kind of like this one myself. But it's always a debate as to whether I go with this one or this one. I mean, I like that this one is near the end of the film, sort of where Tommy gets kind of some crazy ideas popping up in his head. So for that reason, I kind of like this mask as well. But again, a couple of options to go with, a lot more than your standard variety Ultimate Release Jason, in the sense that this one doesn't come with just one swappable head sculpt. He comes with many, and each one of them is self-contained, so you don't have to worry about popping a mask off each one and putting on the exact same head sculpt. In this case, NECA spent a little bit extra on their tooling and molds so that you actually got yourself a brand new head sculpt with every single mask that you get in this set. Done with those masks, and let's move right along. We'll just move Jason over for the time being and bring in part 4 Jason so you can see the comparison between the two. Definitely using the same body mold, definitely using what seems to be the exact same legs and the exact same feet. I would argue the point really why they would even need to come up with a brand new mold anyways, because it's basically just a hallucination of Jason. It's a dream sequence Jason, so why not just simply keep him basically looking the exact same way? Why would they have to come up with a brand new mold? But even like if you look at the wrinkles on the shirt, they seem to be in the exact same place. The collar seems the same mold, and so does the pockets. I thought that this one seemed a little bigger, but I think it's just the fact that his shirt is a little bit more possibly stretched. It still uses a softer material covering over his torso, but as you can see, it's just been applied with a more wet slick. It's very effective, gives them also a more darker color, and there's a little less scuff and kind of dried blood that the original Part 4 Jason had. This is kind of a segue then into possibly a Part 8 Jason, which I would gather or imagine. Now that we're getting a Part 7, I hope that we finally get ourselves a Part 8, and, of course, the Jason Goes to Hell and all those other Jasons as well. But you got to think that NECA probably is going to be using the same sort of method here of producing the look of wet Jason. He's wet everywhere. He's wet on his head, although depending on which mask you end up going with, some masks have his head a little bit wetter than others. This one just happens to be a little bit drier, but his neck is quite soaked. You can see there's a semi-gloss that's been added to it, as well as basically everywhere on his shirt, his arms, his hands, and even his legs. Even though they are all wet, hasn't washed away any of the dirt, the grime, or the blood that apparently has still saturated his pants from previous kills, all the way down to his shoes. Now, the shoes themselves still seem somewhat dry, actually, when you look at them, versus the rest of the figure. It's kind of strange, the fact that they kept the shoes more on a kind of a drier side. I would have even added as much that I would have added to the legs here in the shoes as well, because it just seems like they're a little on the dry side. But all around, definitely could be said this Jason is quite considerably wet. And even though, yes, it's making use of the exact same mold that we had gotten before, it's just those little couple of tweaks. I don't feel, again, NECA should have had to reinvent a brand new mold for a Jason that only appears for a few moments in Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Let's have a look at the guy's articulation here. Can I call you Guy? His head rotates all the way around. It's the same, really, for whatever Jason's head sculpt you decide to go with. It moves up, it moves down, and of course you can rock it back and forth as well. The arms hinge out, but only at about, say, an 85-degree angle bend. You can pull it a little bit more than that, but there's definitely a lot of stuff going on where it's telling you, stop, 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 don't go any further, don't go any further. The arms can also rotate all the way around. You can bend the arm at the elbow, and you can rotate the arms back and forth that way. A hand also rotates all the way around, hinges back and forth. He has an upper torso crunch, which also allows the torso to rotate back and forth. He still has, unfortunately, the rubber diapers. I know a lot of people have coined that term, but it's, at least to the credit of NECA Toys, a way to conceal the joint inside, so you don't see all the workings of how his legs actually come together. Now, this one doesn't bother me as much as, say, Roy's. Roy's seems to always get caught and snagged at the top of his thigh. These older Jasons, this one specifically, I don't have any issues. But yes, I know some people have just called this a rubber diaper. He does have a bend at the knee, and you can also rotate that lower leg, and you can also rotate the feet back and forth, up and down, and there's an ankle pivot back and forth as well. Whatever Jason mask you decide to go with on this particular release, admittingly there's a lot to choose from, it's still one of my favorite Jasons, even though technically you could say it's not really a Jason, as he never really looked like this, or he never really was this. In Friday the 13th Part 5, it was simply all in Tommy's head. And of course that maybe led him down the road of being slightly crazy, even though that never really panned out. In Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. In some ways, Dream Sequence Jason Voorhees has a lot in common both in the film and figure. They're teases for a Jason that we never actually got. In the film, of course, this is a Jason that only is in Tommy's head, so we don't really ever get Jason in the film. Instead, we get the Roy imposter, which I know some people are really against Roy. like Roy. Friday the 13th Part 5 is one of my personal favorites. And also, in a way, Dream Sequence Jason is a bit of a tease on NECA's part as well. We knew we were going to be getting, or at least we thought we were going to be getting a Roy, but before we got Roy, we were teased with another Part 5 Jason release. Although it wasn't Roy, it was Dream Sequence Jason. Utilizing a lot of the same similar mold options that were available with the Part 4 Jason, they did do a little bit more. They threw a lot more at this guy than simply just giving him a wet look. Giving him 4 swappable heads is a good way to start. Not only can you use those head sculpts for this Jason and just pop in and out which head you want to use for the time being, but why not? You can also use that Jason head sculpt, though, even like the wet one, you can use with, say, a Part 4 Jason, even though the rest of his body is going to be still pretty dry. It's a way to mix and match the different head options that NECA literally threw at this guy. He had 4 head sculpts, because it does come with a whole lot of other accessories as well. At the end of the day, the hardest part for me is just deciding which head sculpt I want to use for Dream Sequence Jason. I'm usually still torn between just the wet mask or the blood mask that he sees at the end of Part 5. Anyway, you slice it, though, even though it wasn't technically Roy, the Jason I really wanted to get, Dream Sequence Jason still turned out to be a fine-looking figure. Did you manage to pick up this one for yourself? Or based on this review, what do you guys think of the Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning Dream Sequence Jason Voorhees? And hey, while we're also at it, talking about Part 5 Jason after all, what do you guys think of Part 5? Where does it lie in your top 10 or your favorite Friday the 13th films? Let me know down below what you guys think of Friday the 13th Part 5 A New Beginning. It's personally my favorite, one of my favorite Friday the 13th films. Also, if you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing, perhaps you want to stay on board for more horror-related reviews and NECA reviews, this is the place you'll find it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on, and most definitely stay tuned to this channel Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, generally without fail, and that's usually when you'll find new videos coming onto this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.